good to have you here. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our president, Judy, and we're going to begin our program. Thank you.
All right. With no further ado, I'd like to now introduce to you a special guest, Carmen Santora. He is the Executive Director of the Betters Contracting Bureau.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for having us here. Officer Whitaker gave me a call a couple weeks ago and told me what you guys do. I didn't really know that this even existed, to tell you the truth, so I'm learning something myself tonight. Like Judy mentioned, my name is Carmen Santora. I'm director of the Better Contractors Bureau. A lot of people sort of refer us as a small Better Business Bureau, but we're really not. We only handle home improvement contractor complaints, referrals, recommendations, and inspections. And basically, we're right at the corner of Portland and Titus. We've been in the Rundequite for quite a few years, probably about 15 years at that corner. We used to be on Portland Avenue, across from East Ridge Restaurant. But it's an organization that's over 40 years old, started in 1974. And basically, the Better Contractors Bureau has a lot of different duties and requirements of membership. Right now, our membership is around 400. It's made up of mostly contractors, suppliers, lumber yards, banks, insurance companies, anything that would have to do with a contractor or that would like to support the organization, because we are a nonprofit bureau. And occasionally we get grants from the state, and you know, Senator either Robach or Assemblyman Morelli, things like that. But basically our main duties are, like I mentioned, is to take a complaint on a contractor and to make sure that mostly the seniors, not only in our area, but we work in 5 counties, are not getting scammed. And this year, for whatever reason, we've had more scams than you can believe. It's just a thing that's been going on. Naturally, our weather is starting to come, so the snowplow people will be out again, and we all remember what happened last year. But that was only like one of them. There's so many scams. We average about 20 to 25 contractors that come every year from South Carolina and Canada, and they come usually around the beginning of April and stay here to the end of November. There's about 25 to 30 of them. They come with their children. We used to be able to call them gypsies, but now that's against our whatever. But they're fly-by-night contractors. We try to tell people, if you see anybody, whether it's wintertime, summertime, or whatever, if they have out-of-town license plates on their vehicles, whether it's a car or truck or whatever, don't even bother with them. That's our main thing that you got to look for. In the summertime or good weather, they're always looking for people outside doing their yard work and stuff like that. But basically what I wanted to do is just go over this book a little bit with you. It's a free consumer guide. We publish it twice a year. We take the contractors that join, and basically what they do is they get their name in it, and they get in it. Oh, okay. And basically what they do is when they join, they get to get their name in the book under the category that they specialize in, whether it's roofing, siding, windows, or whatever. On the first couple pages, you'll see what the Better Contractors Bureau does, and then it shows our code of ethics, which all the contractors have to swear to. We do have occasion to expel members that join for not living up to our code of ethics. Basically, this is our officers and directors. There's quite a few people that you'll probably recognize if you go over it. And then it's got in there the services that we offer, which normally are mostly free. Complaint filing is $15. We do offer an inspection service because, believe it or not, sometimes in a very small amount of times, there's consumers trying to rip the contractors off. And it's very unusual, but our inspection department sends somebody to the home when there is a complaint to verify who actually is right or wrong. And like I said, about 98% of the time, the contractor is wrong. Then it starts with a membership list only by name, and then it gets into categories, which basically is, it just tells you, like I mentioned, whether they're in roofing, siding, windows, or doors. One page has a home improvement fact sheet, This is made by the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office hands out a free fact sheet that tells you what to do in case of a contractor problem. They're very short-staffed, so what happens is when you call them, they tell you to call us. If it develops into a contractor who has like 5, 6, 7, 8 complaints against them, then they'll handle the complaint. But if it's only one, they don't do anything about it. They tell you, call us, so that it puts a lot of load on us. This is one of the few states that doesn't have licensing of contractors, which we really should have. Getting back to the book, other than the ads that are in there, there's a lot of consumer tips that are in the book that you really should read. It's very helpful. The back page has got emergency telephone numbers and things like that. But we publish it every year. If you need a new one when they come out, or like I mentioned, we're right at the corner of Titus and Portland, and we'd be glad to give it to you. Our big home show of the year comes up the end of February, 26th, 27th, and 28th at the Dome. But I wanted to give you some little, I won't say comical thoughts on scams, but something that's been happening. We had a case just this year by one of the so-called fly-by-nights. And what happened is this elderly gentleman would go around the town and basically wait to see people that are in their yard or whatever. And he'd tell the person, I noticed your chimney's got some loose bricks or whatever, could I go up and look at it? And he'd go up and look at it, come down with a brick, show the owner that your chimney's got a loose brick, and naturally he'd try to sell the job to the guy. And basically what happened is the homeowner would tell him, no, I don't want to do it. Well, I'll go back and put the brick back, which he had naturally in his coat. So in the meantime, what he would do is he would always pick a wrench. He'd go to the back, jump off, lay on the floor, start yelling, and the homeowner would go around, and he'd come and, what happened? I fell off your roof, but I'm going to sue you. Yeah, and if you don't let me do this job, we're going to sue you. And that was the first scam, and naturally, I hate to say it, but 90% of the people go for it. And it's hard because, you know, everybody doesn't want to get sued, and when you see somebody laying there, one of the worst things that happened, and it was actually in the town of Greece, the same type of people came with 2 children, and their idea is to let their children ask to use your bathroom, and while the owner is out there of the contractor talking to each other, that child, believe it or not, 10, 11 years old, is trained to steal everything in sight. And when they leave, you know, you feel bad because it's a little kid, so you let them use your bathroom. So we tell people, don't let them in there for no reason. One of the big scams, even though it's sort of over with now, is naturally the driveways. And the driveway mix for sealer is usually 60-40, 60% drywall or blacktop and 40% water, while the scammer uses 90% water and 10% sealer. And we've had cases even in Arundequite where they're actually chasing the sealer down the driveway because it's all water. And it'll wash right off. But that's the first thing you got to worry about, and then the insurance of them splashing your doors and all that. So you get a thing that's $29.95 to clean your drive or to do your driveway. It's really one of the biggest scams out there. The other one is happening right now is the gutter scam. They're going to come and clean your gutters. They're advertising in all of the little penny savers, $39.95. When they get there, they end up $1,500 to $2,000, and basically it's because they're telling you that the edge of your roof is all rotted. We had the worst year ever for ice damage, which was the best year ever for the roofing contractors. However, the roofing contractors damaged more roofs this year than ever in the history of doing roofs. And it's a bad situation because most of them will carry a waiver that tells you they're not responsible for damaging your roof. And you're not going to find out if it's damaged until after the ice melts. And when they come back, some of them damage it on purpose, so you're going to end up with a $3,000 job just to have your ice taken off your roof. So it probably will be coming. I mean, we see it now almost. Hopefully it's not going to be like they figure it's going to be, but if somebody comes and does approach you to take the ice off, you got to make sure they're definitely insured, because if they're not, you're really going to be in trouble, because they'll damage the roof, sometimes on purpose, which is most of the time. But the roofing contractors this year did more money taking ice off roofs than they did the entire summer of putting on new roofs. So they loved the winter that we had last year. And it's the same thing as the snowplow people. You know, they have a major storm, they love it. The snowplow people hate for me to tell them when I do a talk is we do not like contracts. A lot of people maybe out there have them, but we don't favor signing a contract for a snowplow driver. Some will tell you I got 10 trucks, 15 trucks, no matter what they have, they're going to break down. If you got a contract, we all know what happened with this guy that wasn't a run quite. But the problem is if you got a contract, it's only good for a certain amount of plowing. And most of the time, it could be 20. After 20, they're going to sock it to you. You know, if you do a $15 per run, you're much better off. If we have a bad weather and the winter is really terrible, I mean, last year I had to plow probably 4 times in one day in my driveway. So you maybe suffer. But once you sign a contract and that guy disappears, you're not going to be calling anybody, because those guys are all booked solid. We already got about 20 calls today asking for recommendations for snowplow drivers. And it's tough, because you don't want to hire somebody who works out of Greece and tells you he's going to come to a Running. And basically, if you're going to go to work 8 o'clock in the morning or something, you want that driveway done at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and they're not going to make it to your house. So if you do hire a snowplow guy, where do you live? I live in Batavia. Well, get lost. I'm not hiring you. You know, so make sure that you hire somebody close by. We do have references on a lot of people. Sometimes they slip between the cracks, but not too much. One of the major things is your contract. The law states that you have to have a written contract. Can't have a post office box. It's got to have their address. It's got to have their actual phone number and their name of the company. And the main thing it's got to have is your 3-day right to cancel, which hardly any of these contractors are living by that law. They don't want to give you 3 days to cancel because they're stuck. So for your own good, if somebody tries to sign a contract with you and tells you I'll be here tomorrow, unless you got a major tree sticking through your roof, tell them, what happened to the 3-day rescission? I got to think about it. And mostly, unfortunately, I'm a senior. A lot of seniors are sitting here too. If you got somebody who can look at this contract for you, let a relative look at it. Nothing is that demanding unless there is a major disaster. But we also have, you got 3 days to rescind. You could bring it to our office. We got people who will look at the contract for you, and we'll go over every single thing and see that it meets the New York State requirements. And just to give you an idea, you're not going to find too many contracts. This is a state required contract. All these are requirements for the homeowner. It doesn't protect the contractor, not one thing on there. It tells you that they got to give you an escrow account, what bank your deposit money is going into. Tells you that you have 3 days to cancel. Tells you that everything here has got to be in writing as to not only if they're remodeling your kitchen, but what type of refrigerator are they putting in, what type of range, when they're going to finish, when they're going to start. So if the contract doesn't resemble something like that, we have these at the office too. We can give you one. this is what it's got to look like. And like I mentioned, the most important thing is no post office box numbers. And unfortunately, with the cell phone age that we have now, almost 75% of the contractors use their cell phone as their major phone. They go off and on like they're on anything. Our main concern for our members is if you have a cell phone for your office and we call you once and it says your voicemail is full, you get like a demerit type of thing. If you get 5 demerits, we bring you before our ethics review board. So you got to answer the telephone for us. They might not have to answer it for you, but if you call us and say, I can't get a hold of this guy, we got a contract, he hasn't been here in 3 days, and he's one of our members, we'll get a hold of him and we'll bring him up on charges. But that's one of the main things. These cell phones are tremendous. I mean, I got one, everybody's got one, but they use it both for and against you, so you got to watch. The worst thing in the world is having to call a contractor in the middle of the night, which you have no heat or something, and it tells you my voicemail is full. You know? So, but if anybody had any questions, yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about licensing. What kind of requirements would a contractor, say somebody that does drywall work in your house?
Well,
What kind of requirements would they?
like I mentioned, there's 46 states have formal licensing or registration. Some states have testing, so you got to take a test.
Okay.
Okay, the knowledge of the test questions is a majority of business.
Okay.
In other words, they can care less if you're really a good carpenter. They want to know if this guy's going to be in business next year because he knows how to handle his money and your money in business and operate his business. So the questions on in a licensing test, a lot have to do with how you run your business. And then it's about 20% on your trade, whether you're carpenter, plumbers, or whatever. Right now, you have to be a licensed electrician in the city, but you don't have to be a licensed electrician in any of the towns.
Oh, really?
Right. So
Why is that?
it's
That's politics.
it's one of these rules that they make.
Wow.
A plumber has to be licensed in the city, but then he's got to be licensed every time in any town that he goes to. So what happens is a lot of them will only work in a certain town that they know they're not going to have a problem with, because if you're, I mean, there's so many towns. If you got to be licensed in each town, then it's tough.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why we're pushing for a county license, because
Yeah.
if our supervisor Bello says, I think we'll license the carpenters in our here every time you get a permit, and you pay $100, even if it's $100 a year. The idea is that the town of Greece will probably pick up on it, and Gates and Ogden.
Right.
And that means that every contractor is going to have to be licensed in each town. So it's really ridiculous not to license them on a county level. You know?
Exactly. If you're talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable, really. But make sure the main thing is the insurance. They have to have liability insurance to do your job, no matter what it is. And if there's more than one person, like the owner, if you see 2 people show up on your property, if you bought a new roof, and the guy says, oh, I work all by myself, and all at once 3 guys appear, he's got to have workman's compensation. If one of them guys fall off the roof, your homeowner is not going to pay, your homeowner's insurance, so you're going to get zapped with a heck of a lawsuit, believe me. So they have to have, when they join our organization, they have to show proof of liability, and then there's on the question is, do you have employees? And unless they lie and we find out, if they say yes, then they have to have also workman's compensation insurance. Now, there's different types of insurance. If you're having a guy who does your lawn, he's insured for lawns. If you're having somebody cut down your trees, those lawn people, some of them, the unethical ones, cut down trees too, but they get insurance for cutting lawns. Right. The insurance for cutting trees down is probably 100 times as much as a guy who's cutting your lawn. Insurance for a roofing contractor is $100 per thousand that they make. An insurance for a wallpaper hanger is like $5 a thousand. So we've had people apply to the Better Contractors Bureau and fill out an application, and when they fill it out, they tell what is your trade? They tell us wallpaper, and then we find out that the guy's on top of somebody's roof. And the only reason they did that is so when they lie to their insurance company, and when they ask them what trade they have, they tell them I do wallpapering, and they only get their insurance for maybe $400 a year, where their insurance should be like $3,000 a year. Right. So it's a hard, really hard situation, but that goes back to the registration or licensing again. You can't lie on something like that. So that's something you got to look for. But is there any more? Yeah.
Yeah, can you comment on subcontractors?
Yeah, it's.
When you hire somebody and they
Right.
say they could have somebody else come in?
I would say probably about 90% of the contractors have subcontractors, because there's hardly anyone that I know in all of the years I've been in business that could afford to keep an electrician, a plumber, a mason on their actual payroll. When I had my own business, this was like 20 years ago, I had 5 employees, and my employees were called mechanics in the trade, because a mechanic in the contracting field can do electrical, plumbing, heating, carpentry, anything. They're trained to be able to do all that stuff. The only difference is they're not as good as a professional plumber or an electrician, but they can do it. But a subcontractor is supposed to have his own insurance if he's working for the general contractor. And the general contractor, the way he makes out is when he hires the sub, he makes sure he sees that form. If they don't give it to him, then he's paying them under the table, and somebody's going to get hurt in the long run, which is usually the homeowner. So if you call somebody and he tells you, oh no, these are all my employees, you don't have to worry, that's probably a lot of baloney, believe me. There is nobody that's going to have their own employees. A company, like a few names, one of our members, Dan Fulmer, does major roofing, has like 30 trucks, secretary, office manager, expediter, foremans. So when you get a price from someone like him, you're going to pay for it, but you're going to get a job because next year he'll be there to come back. But our tendency, I don't care who it is, whether you're buying a car, wash machine, or whatever, is to get the cheapest price. Everybody does that. And it's unfortunate because that's not always the best case. And people will call and say, gee, you know, I got 3 estimates, like you said. And I called Dan Fulmer and XYZ and ABC, and one is 5,000 higher than this other guy. And well, there's a reason, and that's exactly what it is. One guy's working out of his truck, and tomorrow his cell phone is turned off, and see ya. And the other guy has been around for 30 years. So it depends. So sometimes when a customer calls and complains and tells us who they picked, I don't say it, but when I hang up, I go, you deserved it. You know, but you don't want to say that, but that's what happens. And our inspection department, when they go out and look at a job, the first thing they ask the customer is, you know, what happened? And, well, you know, this guy was the cheapest price. And then when you find out what the price was, and you find out it's like $4,000 or $5,000 difference, you got a definite problem. You know, we got one right now. There is an old house in Arundequite. It's an A-frame house, old house. They're putting a new roof on, and the roofing company, people probably out there have seen it. They got the machine that puts all the bundles on top of the roof. Well, when you put 60, 70 bundles of roofing on a roof, and you don't have what they call collar ties holding the roof, that roof went like this, and the walls bowed out 3 inches. So now nobody knew, you know, nobody went in the house to check the attic or anything. So now there's a lawsuit between, is it the supplier who put the bundles up there? Is it the roofer who didn't check my roof? You know, so there's a million things that can go wrong. But a good contractor is going to go in your house, in your attic, look, could I put those bundles up there? You know, so it's another thing you got to watch for.
Exactly what you're talking about. My neighbor right next door had his roof done, and one of those boom where they lift the bundles up, the hydraulics failed, and they knocked the chimney off
Oh,
of the neighbor's
jeez.
driveway. The whole chimney came down from above the roof.
Well, you hope that they had the liability insurance,
Yeah,
believe me.
yeah.
You bring up an interesting point, though. If Ironically wanted inspections, licensing, it would require inspections. It means that you gotta have somebody pretty sharp in town hall for electric, somebody else in plumbing, somebody else in safety, somebody knowledgeable about gas, and this could get very expensive for the town, and your $100, will disappear pretty fast.
Well, that's not really the way it works, because what happens is, like, the plumbers are licensed in Arundel, or in all of the towns where they work.
Yeah.
But the town is only requiring the license. What they're charging for is the permit that the plumber needs. Okay, so what we're asking for is if the towns or the counties are not going to license anybody, or the state, if the towns won't say license, if they charge a fee to the contractor who's doing your garage addition, and I don't mean for the permit, I'm talking about they should have these people registered. It's just like they're trying to find out who all these landlords are that don't take care of their property. Unless you get these people, their names, who they are. I mean, there's a lot of out-of-town landlords, believe me. One of the other things before I do leave is, like I mentioned before, was the license plates. They'll be coming again, but licensing of the license plates, if you see an out-of-town license plate, just tell them, see ya, leave, because those are the people that are going to really rip you off. And yeah, Chief. No, go ahead.
That just brings me to a point where either maybe it happens to be a senior citizen or not, but if you will, maybe neighbors are observing this, or people in the neighborhood. And more specific is my point, where an older person is having some work done in their home, and as the work progresses, the contractor keeps adding to the bill. Or an individual who, for example, has maybe a $80,000 house ends up putting another $80,000 into it, as they continue to be told by the contractor that they're upselling.
Yeah.
The importance from our perspective is, at some point we're hoping that maybe some neighbor will report that, to say, I've got some concerns that this is an older person in a home that perhaps in the next few years is going to be selling it. There isn't family around to check on them, and we feel as though they might be taken advantage of. We've had a couple of those situations occur, and if the call had been made sooner, we probably could have intervened to maybe save $40,000, $50,000, $60,000.
We had an exact example, I think it was about 4 years ago, and it was the mailman who was watching over one of his people on his route. And what had happened is he noticed that there was an elderly woman having a new roof put on her home, and there was 3 contractors up doing it. And he called our office and says, I can't do a heck of a lot because you can't tell people what to do, but my route customer is having a new roof put on. He says, and she had a new roof put on last year. Oh. Yeah, so he says, these people shouldn't be up there doing that. And we went to her home with one of the Arundel police officers, and they called the 3 of them down, and the woman wasn't home. And when we asked where she was taken in her truck to the bank to get $20,000. Yeah, and when that police officer, when he came back, the police officer, I can still see it in my mind, I mean, which I know they hate to do it, but he took that nightstick and put it in this guy's chin. He says, you must have been hatched because you could not have had a mother or a grandmother. How could you do this to this lady? Yeah. And then they ended up checking the 3 names of the workers, and 2 of them were wanted on warrants. So it was an unbelievable, it wasn't for the mailman, just like the chief is saying. And if you got somebody watching, we've had cases where an actual manager of M&T Bank called us and said we had a client just leave with $12,000 with a contractor, and I don't believe she should have did that, but we couldn't stop her. So they give us the address, and then we go to that house and find out what's going on. Now, naturally, we're not going to get involved in some kind of an argument, But we did, the woman we were talking to with the mailman, we finally asked her, how did you give this amount of money? He said, well, I just told the man, here's my checkbook, take what you need. And, you know, come to find out, yeah, she had no relatives, living all by herself. She was 92 years old. And it doesn't matter maybe what age group you're in, but the idea is that when you're all alone, like the chief says, if you don't get somebody watching for you, you're stuck, you know. But let me go down it real fast, and then I'll leave you. One, always get 3 proposals. Make sure you get 3 written proposals, and try to always get them from 3 same size companies. Sometimes it's difficult, but try to get them comparable. Never be scared into signing a contract when they tell you that yourself or your house is in danger. Another quick little story is we did a sting on a furnace company. Furnace company was going to a house that wanted to sell a new furnace. The woman was following downstairs behind the guy. Immediately he told the woman, I smell gas, get back out. I want to check your furnace. He went down. Myself, one of the city police officers, and one of the TV stations was behind a petition in the basement because we knew how this contractor operated. The salesman went immediately and stuck an ice pick in the heat exchanger of the furnace.
Oh, come on.
And then started to call the lady down to show her. In the meantime, we had the RG&E guy with us and the camera and the police officer, and we told him what happened. He says, no, I was just checking. It was so rotted it went in there. Well, it's unfortunate, but that's what they do. They'll make more damage ahead of time. So don't let somebody scare you into thinking that something's going to happen.
Right.
The other thing is there are a couple of heating contractors in Rochester. When they sell you a new furnace and let's say you fell for it, they follow, there's a company with a truck that follows them, immediately takes your old furnace out. So if you call the RG&E, there's no furnace to check to see if it's needed a new furnace. So you got to watch for a company that you buy a furnace from that immediately has the truck right there with them, taking your furnace out. The other thing, number 3, is a lot of people will tell you, if you let us do your job, whatever it may be, let us use your house as a demonstrate, as a model. It's okay if they put a sign in front of your house, but not if they're going to give a gimmick as far as using your house as a model. High pressure tactics from salespeople. If you go with my company, I'll put in a new storm door for you. Right now, the towns, most of them, including Arundequite, are issuing grants for windows, doors, furnaces, any kind of that type of thing. So if you got a grant, you're supposed to pick from 3 or 4 reputable contractors. But some of these guys, even though they may be on a list, will come in and offer you some free gimmick to pick them. So that's really unethical, and we tell them don't do it. If you get anybody asking you for a cash payment, I'm talking about actual cash, not a check, never do it. And if they want a check made out to them personally, again, that's a big red light, and tell them no way, because you know what they're doing. They don't want either the government to know, or they want to make sure they can get to that bank right away. If you sign a contract and you feel a little bit leery, like I mentioned, and you don't have a friend or relative with you, stop at our office. You got 3 days to cancel. We'll make sure we go over it for you and tell you, wait a minute, there's something missing on this thing, or they don't have enough information, or they got a post office box, and we'll let you know. And then we'll probably get a threatening call from the contractor. But you don't know how many calls we get, believe me.
What is your actual address?
1151 Titus. It's right at the corner. There's 2 commercial red brick buildings, and we're on the first one. Let's see, the other 2 things. I mentioned about the contractor's name, address, no post office boxes. Payments got to be in 3 draws. If you're financing it from a bank, a lot of contractors are going to try to get you to sign all these papers, and in between, one of them is going to be the completion certificate. They'll get you to sign that. The minute you sign it, they get all their money back. And last but not least is a warranty or a guarantee. You got to remember, most roofing contractors give you like a 25 or 30-year warranty on the roof, but there's only a 1-year guarantee on their workmanship. We get constant calls 4 years after the job is done, and the people say, I got a 25-year warranty on my roof, and the guy won't come back. Well, it's on the material. It's the guy, the contractor guarantees you for 1 year. So if you want to have a little leverage and you're picking between 3 or 4 contractors, the one you're talking to and who's really pushing, tell them, fine, I don't want a 1-year warranty, I want a 10-year guarantee. And believe me, to get that job, these guys will sign anything. So when we get a complaint, we only go back 3 years. If you got it in writing that the contract is guaranteed 5, 10, or whatever, then we get involved for as long as that is. But a lot of them only give you 1 year. So I thank you for having me and
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.